Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man that's going to record this episode from aboard a stolen motorcycle. It's Jake Lewitt.
Mark, there's two men I'll host a podcast with. One of them is me, the one's you. I guess that makes sense.
I hope that one day you and I can form the Cusack-Cage connection in this, because I love during this final fight when Diamond Dog, Cyrus, and Swamp Thing are driving away in a stolen fire truck. John Cusack's character looks at it and goes, Cyrus. And then Nicolas Cage goes, Grissom. No, it's the other way around. You have John Cusack going, Cyrus, right?
Cyrus.
And then Nicolas Cage goes, Grissom. And it's it's perfect. They're on the same exact page. And then in 97, Jay, during the final fight in Con Air, when I saw Nicolas Cage and John Cusack get on top of stolen police motorcycles to chase after John Malkovich and Ving Rhames, I was in heaven. I was very confused, but I was in heaven because the guy from Leaving Las Vegas and the dude from Say Anything were in an action movie chasing the guy from In the Line of Fire. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a very odd trio of actors to be like, and the guy from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
it's like hanging off the back.
Oh man,
and then like the big naked guy from Sideways, which obviously is post 97, but he's driving the fire truck.
Man, whenever I think of MC Gainey, I always think of him in Club Dread, because there's this line where the killer's walking up to him and he goes, "Someone's always trying to shit in the apple pie," and then he gets his throat slit. And then he just dies. But that line is so wonderful by MC Gainey, just hearing him say that. And, I've been living with this scene for 25 years. And I still never remember it, and I don't think it's real.
I am completely there with you. We're talking about Con Air today because we've been doing Con Air, the podcast, talking about Con Air chapter by chapter. And we're a long way away at time of recording from getting to this fire truck chase, because it's two of the last chapters in the film, and I don't know that they're part of this film. It makes no sense that Con Air ends with a fire truck chase, and then just the various elements of the final death of Cyrus the Virus Grissom. It's some of the most nonsense ever committed to one scene, and the disparate elements do not connect, but it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
like he's on top of a fire truck and a ladder. He's using the fire hose to try and shoot them off the motorbikes. Great, fine. Then they have he and Cage have a opposite sides of a ladder fight with a hook that Cage manages to break one-handed, and then spear Cyrus in the ankle at an angle is not possible from the location he's at and the location Cyrus is at, and then you see the broken spear through Cyrus's ankle, and it couldn't have got through the ladder hole and then rotated. It would block. It just makes no sense. And then he gets handcuffed to the ladder, and then he gets chucked on some electric wires, and he winds up on a rock conveyor belt. There's like at least 3 minutes of footage cut out in between these various segments to make it all make sense, but I don't care. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and as you said, we're starting Con Air the podcast, so just go in anywhere you listen to podcasts and listen to Con Air the podcast. The first episode is dropping on July 14th, so it may take a couple days to get everywhere. But yeah, so we wanted to kind of let you know we're starting that show. You've probably listened to Deep Blue Sea the podcast, and we just figured, what's the best way to promote Con Air the podcast? And that would be talking about a final fight. I'm going to say it again. It's not real, because when you think about Speed, I always forget about the train bit at the end.
Yeah.
When I think about Face Off, for some reason I never think about the boat fight. It's just but like this fight, more so than any other scene in the history of action movies, is wildly tacked on, because as you're watching this movie, it ends. It has room to breathe. He's joking around. He's talking to guard Sally Bishop. She's like, next time, take the bus. You have his Casey Poe coming up to talk to him. You have his wife Trisha Poe coming up, and you're like, okay, it's over.
Danny Trejo's arm is just dangling there.
Which I don't get, and it's wonderful. And I also like that Sally Can't Dance gets pushed down, and it's like, like that's a really funny Yeah, it's just such a random bit, and you're like, okay, this movie's over. Like everyone's happy and everything's good. But then they steal a fire truck, and then
a whole new mode of transport.
There's keys in these motorcycles. Poe, one-armed Cameron Poe, and John Cusack in sandals get on them, chase them through Vegas. All they have to do is stay behind them. This fire truck is not going to lose them. All they have to do is just follow them. They don't have to jump on it. They don't have to do anything.
But they do.
And then the two other cops on bikes get involved, but they have to drop a donut.
They have to drop a donut first because it's the 90s.
And then it's a fire truck. Cyrus the Virus gets on the back on the ladder. John Malkovich, mind you. Gets on there and starts shooting the other cops with water. And they're about 50 yards behind Cusack and Cage. And they wipe them out, not Cage and Cusack. And then somehow along the way, Ving Rhames gets blown up from an errant motorcycle.
Yeah, the one that Nick Cage gets off his bike onto the ladder and just kind of ghosts his bike into Ving Rhames on the back of the truck.
Yeah.
Something that I generally forget that happens every time. Like, as far as I'm concerned, Diamond Dog's still out there somewhere roaming the streets of Vegas.
I was like, is he dead? Like, because and all right, and Cage hangs on, and he stabs Malkovich in the leg with that broken spear hook, and Malkovich screams for 7 seconds. It's the longest movie scream I think I've ever heard.
I mean, it's going through the ankle, and he wasn't expecting it, so...
I'd scream too. You just rarely hear that long of a scream. Unless someone's falling from a long distance, like in Cliffhanger. But and then, okay, this is where things get, like, bendy of reality. And I hate using the word fever dream because I think that's used too much. But Cusack gets on the fire truck, starts hitting the top of it with an axe. And then he puts the fire hose in there and basically turns the cab of the fire truck into a fish tank with MC Gainey inside of it.
It is pouring out later in this scene.
Where does all this water come from?
Well, I've done a quick Google, and a fire truck will hold 500 to 750 gallons of water.
Okay.
So I think there is enough in there to do that. I haven't worked out how the size of that cab. When we get to that scene on Con Air the podcast, I will have done some kind of estimate about all of this.
Well, how many gallons does a fire hose shoot per second?
Per
second. So a fire hose, it's 4 to 6 gallons a second. So when Cyrus is blasting all of those cops, he runs through, 300, 400? Because he's on that thing for a long time.
So if we go for the extremes here and say there's 750 gallons in the tank, and he's going with 4 gallons per second, which is the best case scenario, then he can keep that going for 187 seconds, so 3 minutes, basically.
Okay, yeah, that's fair, but it's a fish tank. It's an MC Gainey fish tank.
Well, but I mean, just think of the velocity, the force of that fire hose on MC Gainey's head, because he is directly below that. When Larkin opens fire, essentially, he's like directly below that hole. So that can't be fun.
No, yeah, I mean, he just gets absolutely blasted. I mean, he gets MC'd, and you know what's crazy? In '97, MC Gainey, he was in Breakdown, which has car chases with trucks, and he's a driver, but he just gets shot by Rex Linn from Cliffhanger. So in '97, he was in 2 movies that just feature terrible journeys, and he was killed in both of them, supposedly. How do you feel about that?
We see his body like be expelled through the windscreen of the fire truck, but we don't see it land. My guess is he's unconscious from the fire hose. Like that hit him and he just passed out. But we don't see him get up. I don't see him get arrested later in the next scene. He's out there somewhere. It's him and Garland Green against the world.
What?
Garland needs a driver.
I feel like flooding the inside cab of a fire truck is pretty dangerous. Like, Swamp Thing wasn't going to go blow himself up. He was going to keep driving. You could probably stay on it.
Yeah, but I think their plan is they want to stop the truck.
Yeah, that's true, because it could cause more damage if it keeps going.
I mean, it's caused a fair amount so far.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it blows up so
This
much.
film won the Razzie for the most, I can't remember what the wording for it was, like the most blatant disregard for public life and damage caused or something along those lines in 1997, which I hate the Razzies.
Yeah.
But they created that award just for Con Air.
I mean, it's insane. It's, oh man, yeah, Razzies. I saw this before. Yeah, worst reckless disregard for human life and public property.
Yeah, which to be fair, like earlier in the film, they destroyed Vegas. They just landed a plane in Vegas when the airport is quite close by to Vegas.
Oh man. Nick Cage.
Land it on the strip.
Could Cameron Poe go back to jail for stealing a police motorcycle?
I mean, probably. You'd think they'd weigh up his intentions as being good, but then the reason he was in prison in the first place was he was protecting his wife from a guy with a knife, kind of, and he got sent to prison for that. So, I mean, he's a military man. He needs to be judged accordingly. So, yeah, he's going back for another 8 years. He hands little Casey a rabbit and he gets carted straight off to jail.
Yeah.
Con Air 2.
Hey, Scumbus.
Scumbus, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be on a future Con Air, the podcast, the episode. Now, let's talk about Cyrus's death, because he gets, okay.
It's glorious.
He gets handcuffed to a fire truck ladder that gets lifted in the air. That fire truck hits a catwalk that's going from building to building. Somehow somehow the handcuff breaks, and
so my guess for that is the ladder breaks somehow, and he fortunately is released because the handcuff still seems to be closed and intact on his wrist when he's flying through the air.
So that's a death in itself.
Yeah.
But then he lands on electrical cables and just goes through them.
Considerable amount of sparking as he goes through them. So death number 2, at least.
Huge guitar riff. And then
I was going to say death number 3 because they've already survived a plane crash.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Death number 3. He lands on a conveyor belt with rocks.
which, I mean, he goes through a catwalk that appears to be on the Vegas Strip. And he just falls down the other side of that catwalk. So this rock conveyor belt is on the Vegas Strip, the other side of this catwalk somehow. It is not there before they go through the catwalk. So I don't know how far this crash into the catwalk expelled him out the other side, but it is some distance.
He shoots through 2 panes of glass, misses all the people. Goes about 100 yards because it's off of the strip at this point.
Yes, you're right. They've gone through a tunnel that's in construction, but there's still like a cinema in the background.
Yeah. No. Like he goes off the road. How about that? Like he flies off the road into a middle of a construction site, which I don't think
working at late at night.
Do you keep rock crushers near traffic?
I don't know. And if I were to have them operating in the middle of the night, I would have somebody monitoring them. I think I would at the very least have a fence around it.
Maybe that person was like, "Oh man, that was a huge explosion," and they ran away.
That's where they've gone. There's a money explosion.
Oh yeah.
Like the fire truck has gone into into another truck. Money has gone everywhere. Any self-respecting guard of a construction site is going to go off and pick some money up. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
I'd do it, yeah.
Take it and run.
What are the chances someone's going to try and break into a rock smushing building site in the middle of the night?
Someone's going to steal these rocks. And the conveyor belt drops him. Even the way he falls, he lands on his head perfectly in line with the rock smasher, and he gets Malkoviched.
But yeah, I mean, he goes up the conveyor belt head first, and so he does some kind of a flip. Some kind of a acrobatic Olympic diving flip that lands him head first, face up in the rock crusher, without hitting it on the way down. And then he sees the rock crusher coming, but he's understandably dazed, given that he's died 4 or 5 times at this point already. That's it. That's the end of Cyrus the Virus Grissom.
My gosh.
I mean, we talked about Deep Blue Sea before. This is a Jim-esque death, isn't it? There's so many components that lead to him being killed.
He's dead 4 times, like you said.
At least, yeah.
My gosh. It's just, it just blows my mind. It's so lovely. It is just, you don't understand, Jay. You do understand, but this is insane. And I never remember it. And it's absolutely beautiful. And I think, you know 1997 was an insane year for traveling, right? Have you heard me say that yet?
I think you've mentioned it. I don't think it was on the pod, but I think you have mentioned it. But remind me why.
Air Force One. Fifth Element, he's a cab driver. Goes to space. The Edge, a plane crashes.
Space cruise.
Yeah, like an Edge, the plane crashes. Speed 2, a cruise liner gets taken over. The Game.
Titanic.
The Breakdown, you have a kidnapping, Nothing to Lose. You have a hijacking. Starship Troopers. You know how many ships get blown up in that? Dante's Peak, the boat scene. Lost World, the boat scene. You have Event Horizon. I mean, a ship goes to hell. You have Alien Resurrection, that all takes place on a ship. Anaconda's on a boat. Men in Black, Edgar's ship gets shot down. It's just, 97 was the year of just horrible traveling that you just don't want to be anywhere near because you're just in a lot of trouble. And this movie has 2 of those scenes. It has a runaway fire truck and then it has a runaway plane. I just still don't believe it. I just still don't believe it. It's
It's a film worthy of a scene by scene breakdown.
Yeah, and guess who's doing that?
I mean, I had no idea.
No, but yeah, I mean, I'm just glad I got you in for this final fight because it's so insane, but I love it. But I never remember it. It's weird. It's
Well, it's because so much else happens prior to this, and this is, as you said, it feels kind of tacked on. This isn't nothing to do with Con Air for this scene. I'm exactly the same as you with Speed. I always forget the end of Speed. I kind of forget the start of Speed as well. You remember the bus stuff with Speed. The elevator is the prequel. The train is the sequel.
Yeah.
There's 3 films in that film. It's like with the other big 90s Cage film with The Rock. I always forget the car chase.
Yeah, me too.
Which is because there's so much setup in that film before they get to going to The Rock. But then that film doesn't have a big ending to it. That film ends on Alcatraz and then just the film is done, pretty much. Mm-hmm. There's no big denouement, unless there isn't, I've forgotten it. There's no hot air balloon chase at the end of The Rock.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. There's them heating up the balloons, chasing Ed Harris.
Cage has got the string of pearls, a virus that he's trying not to break on a hot air balloon.
Oh my gosh. A hot air balloon chase. And also, 97 was Turbulence, too. Which was another plain horrible thing.
Well, it's a big year for Vegas as well, because Vegas Vacation.
Oh, yeah.
Not just Con Air.
And also, remember at the end of Anaconda, the hot air balloon chase?
Yes, that's great, with the snake going from balloon to balloon.
I love this movie, and I'm glad you joined me to talk about this real quick because
very happy to.
I think everyone here, if you're listening, you're gonna have a great time listening to Con Air the podcast. We have 4 episodes currently recorded of 40. We got some really fun guests going on. The first episode's insane. We got Nick Rehack back. And anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here? I think I'm pretty good.
I mean, Deep Blue Sea, the podcast, still going as well. We're now monthly doing Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. Films directed by Rennie Harlin or featuring sharks or aquatic action, that kind of thing. So lots of fun films. We covered Anaconda. Yeah, lots of fun films over there as well.
And Primal was released on the 13th, July 13th, which is when I'll release this. Either today, I'll probably release this today or on the 13th or 14th. So go listen to
another
Primal.
Nick Cage travel film. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, on a boat.
On a boat
with Kevin Durant. He captures
Let's get back into Primal.
He captures a jaguar on a boat. It escapes, but then there's a serial killer on there as well. It's a lot. But okay, I just want to say one last thing. It's so annoying that they had to have a glory shot of Cusack's sandals at the end of the action scene.
Well, that's how he's introduced. The first shot of him walking on screen is in sandals. So just bringing it back.
He floods MC Gainey. It's a fish tank, MC Gainey.
Well, I mean, you wear sandals at the beach, and he's using the water, and that's as much as I can do.
And isn't there a line where he says, like, you pull over? He's like, you pull over.
Larkin says, you pull over, and MCN's like, yeah, sure, how about this? And swerves into some sketch.
How is he I love that he's one of the last men standing of all this.
One of the few survivors.
Happy.
One of the few, big, main convicts that survives. That maybe survives. I don't know.
He is such a great character actor, MC Gainey.
I know. Yeah.
He makes everything. He's never made anything worse that he's been in. Every side character that he has, he always makes better, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I've never known him to give a bad performance.
No. At the very least, I would give it a C for Gainey.
Or an M.
Yeah. I want to see him as a DJ in a movie.
That'd be good. Yeah.
MC Gainey. Brother.
Will he be the DJ of a gym? Because it's all about the gains. The MC of the gains. That's enough, I think.
Like your life first film on Twitter?
Yep. And run the Lamb, Association Movie Blogs, have a weekly episode on the Lambcast doing movie trivia on Lampity. Always a fun time. You're a recent guest. I was a recent guest on that show. Maybe we'll play each other later again soon. Who knows?
Let it ride.
But yeah, that's me. Thanks for having me on to talk about Con Air, something we haven't done in days.
This is lovely. I'm so happy. All right, well, this was fun. Thank you for joining me.
Anytime.
All right, so for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, for Jake Lewitt, this is Movie Songs and Flicks. We'll see you next week.